Have you ever wondered what it's really like behind the doors of a royal palace? Beyond the glittering tiaras and grand ceremonies lies a world that few outsiders ever glimpse. A world where power, privilege, and peculiar behaviors collide. The shocking revelations from Prince Andrew's former maid pull back that curtain, giving us an intimate look at the Duke of York's private life. From his explosive reaction over a tiny gap in the curtains to his insistence on the precise arrangement of his 72 stuffed toys, these stories offer a raw, unfiltered view of life in the royal household. What do these revelations tell us about the man behind the title? How does this glimpse into his private world fit into the bigger controversies surrounding him? And what does it mean for the future of a monarchy that is being asked harder questions than ever before? Let's get into details of all this. The maid, who worked for Prince Andrew during his time as a senior royal, has described experiences that range from the peculiar to the outright uncomfortable. Her accounts have brought new scrutiny to a prince already under a public microscope, reigniting debates about privilege, power, and accountability within the royal family. But what compelled her to speak out now? The answer lies in her years of silence, during which the weight of her experiences lingered in the shadows of royal secrecy. The former maid recounted her memories of Prince Andrew as someone who could be exacting to the point of obsession. Among her most vivid anecdotes was the infamous curtain incident, a story that has since become emblematic of his alleged entitlement. On a seemingly ordinary day, the maid had drawn the prince's curtains, only to leave a small gap where light filtered through. To most, such an error might seem inconsequential, but to Andrew, it was an affront that warranted a sharp rebuke. His anger, she recalled, was so intense that it left her on the verge of tears, questioning her ability to perform what was otherwise a routine task. What makes this particular incident stand out isn't just the act itself, but what it suggests about the dynamics within the palace. The power imbalance between the prince and his staff was palpable. In this case, a small oversight became a catalyst for a display of temper that revealed more about the man behind the title than perhaps he intended. Yet this was only the beginning of a series of revelations that would cast an unflattering light on his character. The former maid also detailed Andrew's peculiar obsession with his collection of plush toys. Unlike the typical hobby of a collector, this wasn't a matter of occasional interest, it bordered on ritualistic. His stuffed toys, all 72 of them, had to be arranged according to precise instructions, laminated for the convenience of palace staff. The largest bears were to be placed at the back, while the smallest sat neatly at the front, creating a display that could rival the precision of a military parade. Any deviation from this arrangement was reportedly met with frustration, further underscoring his exacting nature. These stories, while strange and at times even amusing, carry an undercurrent of something far more significant. They point to a pattern of behavior that staff members reportedly endured for years, a sense that Andrew's expectations extended far beyond what might be considered reasonable. The former maid wasn't the only one who faced challenges in serving the prince. Other staff members have spoken of similar experiences, ranging from being ordered to fetch items he could have easily retrieved himself to enduring scoldings for the most trivial infractions. It's easy to dismiss such accounts as exaggerated or isolated, but the sheer consistency of these stories makes them harder to ignore. They reflect an environment where royal status often insulated individuals from accountability, creating a culture in which staff were expected to accommodate even the most unreasonable demands. And for Andrew, this sense of entitlement wasn't limited to his interactions with palace employees. The maid's account adds another layer to the growing narrative about Prince Andrew's personal and professional life, a narrative already fraught with controversies. Public perception of the prince had been on a downward spiral long before her revelations came to light, largely driven by his associations with figures like Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. But while those scandals dominate headlines, these smaller, more intimate stories bring a human dimension to the picture. They reveal a side of Andrew that many might not have seen, but that those closest to him were all too familiar with. What's striking is how these anecdotes mirror broader criticisms of Andrew's behavior throughout his life. From his childhood, where he was reportedly indulged by his parents, to his adult years, where his royal status shielded him from the consequences of his actions, a consistent theme emerges. The former maid's stories fit seamlessly into this larger context, providing yet another piece of the puzzle. As these revelations continue to circulate, they raise questions not just about Prince Andrew, but about the institution he represents. The monarchy, long seen as a symbol of stability and tradition, has faced growing scrutiny in recent years, with stories like these chipping away at its carefully curated image. While the focus may be on Andrew's individual actions, the implications extend far beyond him, touching on the culture and structure of royal life itself. The Maid's decision to speak out, then, isn't just an act of personal catharsis. It's a contribution to a much larger conversation about power, privilege, and the human cost of maintaining an institution steeped in tradition. For years, the public has speculated about what life inside the palace might truly be like. Now, with voices like hers emerging, those speculations are becoming harder to dismiss. Would these stories have seen the light of day if not for the growing willingness of individuals to challenge the norms that once kept them silent? In the context of a changing cultural landscape, where transparency and accountability are increasingly valued, the Maid's revelations feel particularly timely. They serve as a reminder that behind the pomp and pageantry lies a world far more complex and far less glamorous than the one most of us imagine. This account, while compelling in its own right, is only one part of a much larger narrative. As we delve deeper into Prince Andrew's life and the culture of royal privilege, more questions will arise, each one pushing us to reconsider what we know about this storied institution. What other secrets might emerge from behind the palace walls? The answer, as we've learned, might be closer than we think. The former Maid's revelations about Prince Andrew offer a rare glimpse into the private life of a royal family member. While stories like the curtain incident and his plush toy obsession are both peculiar and striking, they also raise broader questions about the environment within royal households. These tales of meticulous demands and moments of unkindness reveal a pattern of behavior that many now believe was nurtured by a culture of entitlement and indulgence. Growing up as the Queen's favorite child, Prince Andrew occupied a position of privilege that most could scarcely imagine. This unique status wasn't just a public perception. It influenced how he was treated by his family, staff, and the institution of the monarchy. Reports suggest that Andrew received more of the Queen's personal attention than his older siblings, particularly Prince Charles, who spent much of his early years in the care of nannies due to his mother's royal duties. For Andrew, this close bond with the Queen may have fostered a sense of invincibility that shaped his interactions with others throughout his life. This perception of favoritism wasn't lost on palace insiders. Staff members and royal observers alike have described Andrew as someone who benefited greatly from his status as the Queen's golden boy. Unlike his siblings, who often faced the full weight of royal expectations, Andrew seemed to enjoy a degree of leniency that allowed certain behaviors to flourish unchecked. This leniency may have contributed to the personality traits that former staff members have described: stubbornness, rudeness, and a lack of accountability. The Maid's accounts of Andrew's behavior echo stories that have surfaced over the years from other staff and insiders. These anecdotes paint a picture of a prince who not only expected the highest standards of service, but often demanded them in ways that could be perceived as unreasonable. For instance, his infamous insistence on having the teddy bears arranged to his exact specifications is not an isolated quirk, but part of a larger pattern of demanding behavior. To palace staff, these instructions may have felt less like an eccentricity and more like a reflection of an unyielding desire for control. This behavior extended beyond his immediate interactions with staff. Andrew's sense of entitlement reportedly influenced his lifestyle choices, from his lavish spending to his extensive use of private air travel, a habit that earned him the nickname Air Miles Andy. These choices, while not directly related to his treatment of palace employees, reinforce the image of a man accustomed to having his preferences accommodated without question. In a sense, his personal habits mirrored his professional conduct, precise, uncompromising, and sometimes at odds with the expectations placed upon him as a royal representative. Yet this picture of indulgence and entitlement wasn't without its cracks. While Andrew may have enjoyed the privileges of royal life, he also carried the weight of public scrutiny, particularly as his actions became more visible to the outside world. His relationships, friendships, and decisions have all been dissected in the court of public opinion, often overshadowing the good he might have done as a working royal. In some cases, Even his achievements were framed against the backdrop of his more controversial moments, making it difficult for him to escape the narrative that has come to define him. The Maid's decision to speak out is particularly significant in this context. For years, staff members serving the royal family have adhered to an unspoken code of silence, rarely sharing their experiences with the public. This discretion has been viewed as a cornerstone of royal life, preserving the mystique and privacy of the institution. By breaking this silence, the Maid not only revealed a more personal side of Prince Andrew, but also challenged the broader norms of what can and cannot be shared about life behind palace doors. Her decision to come forward wasn't just an act of personal catharsis. It also served as a wake-up call for the public and the monarchy alike. If one of the Queen's own children could behave in ways that alienated staff and raised questions about royal accountability, what does this say about the institution as a whole? These revelations invite a deeper examination of the power dynamics within the palace, highlighting the challenges faced by those who work tirelessly to maintain the facade of royal perfection. The public's reaction to these stories has been telling. While some view them as confirmation of long-held suspicions about Andrew's character, others see them as a reflection of a broader issue within the monarchy. The disparity between the royals and their staff, both in terms of status and expectations, underscores the unique pressures of serving the crown. For those outside this world, the stories may seem absurd or even comical, such as the laminated instructions for teddy bear arrangements. But for those within it, they represent a daily reality of navigating royal demands. As these revelations continue to unfold, they serve as a reminder of the human cost of royal privilege. The staff members who dedicate their lives to the monarchy do so under immense pressure, often sacrificing their own well-being to uphold an image of seamless service. When this dedication is met with unkindness or unreasonable expectations, it exposes the imbalance of power that lies at the heart of these relationships. For Prince Andrew, these stories are more than just anecdotes. They are pieces of a larger puzzle that has been taking shape for years. They offer insight into the man behind the title, shedding light on the traits and habits that have shaped his public and private life. But they also raise important questions about the culture of the institution he represents. How does the monarchy reconcile these revelations with its commitment to public service? And what steps, if any, can be taken to address the issues highlighted by these accounts? As the narrative surrounding Prince Andrew evolves, it becomes increasingly clear that these stories are not just about him. They are about the intersection of power, privilege, and accountability in one of the world's most scrutinized institutions. The Maid's decision to break her silence may be a turning point, but it is also a starting point for a larger conversation about what it means to serve the crown, and what it means to be served by it. This conversation is far from over. With each revelation, the line between public and private life becomes increasingly blurred, challenging the monarchy to adapt to a world that demands transparency and accountability. For Andrew, the path forward is uncertain, but for those who have heard these stories, one thing is clear. The days of unquestioned privilege may be coming to an end. The revelations surrounding Prince Andrew's treatment of staff and his private habits form just one part of the broader tapestry of his life. They align seamlessly with other narratives that have painted a less than flattering portrait of the Duke of York, a man who for decades enjoyed the privileges of royalty while often finding himself at the center of controversy. But these recent accounts also provide a lens through which we can examine the culture of royal entitlement more broadly, where hierarchy and status often obscure the human cost of maintaining the monarchy. Prince Andrew's behavior, as described by his former maid, seems to have been influenced by a lifetime of insulation from consequences. As the Queen's second son, Andrew was never the heir, but he also wasn't relegated to obscurity like many other spares in royal history. Instead, he carved out a unique role for himself, benefiting from the attention and affection of his mother while enjoying the freedom that came with being less constrained by the responsibilities of kingship. This duality placed him in a privileged position, but it may have also contributed to the patterns of behavior that would later cause significant public backlash. Observers have often noted that Andrew's personality seemed to stand out even among his siblings. Where Prince Charles exuded duty and Princess Anne earned a reputation for no-nonsense hard work, Andrew appeared more relaxed, more carefree. This attitude may have endeared him to some, particularly in his younger years. But it also set the stage for a series of decisions that would bring his character into question. Whether it was his reported penchant for crude jokes during his school days or his perceived lack of intellectual curiosity, Andrew's early reputation was one of a royal who enjoyed the perks of his station without fully embracing its responsibilities. These character traits, seemingly benign in childhood, became more significant as Andrew entered adulthood. His military service, while commendable, did not escape scrutiny. He served as a helicopter pilot in the Falklands War, a role that garnered him respect but also fed into his self-assured and sometimes boastful image. Stories from this time describe a man who was confident to the point of arrogance, a perception that would follow him into his later years as a working royal. It is within this context that the anecdotes from his former maid take on greater significance. They are not isolated stories, but rather reflections of a lifelong pattern of entitlement. The meticulous demands over curtain gaps and teddy bears, while seemingly trivial, symbolize a broader issue, an expectation that others would always cater to his preferences, no matter how unreasonable they might seem. These behaviors, when viewed alongside his other controversies, suggest a prince who has struggled to adapt to the changing expectations of public figures in a modern, more egalitarian world. The issue of royal entitlement extends beyond Andrew, however. It is part of a systemic culture within the monarchy, one that has long relied on strict hierarchy and tradition to maintain its authority. In this environment, the royals are not just individuals, but symbols of an institution that demands deference and respect. For staff working within the palace, this often means navigating an unspoken code of conduct that prioritizes the royals' needs above all else. The stories shared by Andrew's former maid are not unique. They echo similar accounts from other royal households where staff have described feeling undervalued, overworked, and at times even mistreated. What makes Andrew's case particularly compelling is the contrast between his private behavior and his public persona. As a working royal, he was expected to embody the values of the monarchy, projecting an image of service, dignity, and grace. Yet these stories reveal a more complex and often contradictory reality. Behind the public facade was a man whose actions did not always align with the ideals he was meant to represent. This disconnect has not gone unnoticed by the public, who have increasingly called into question the role of the monarchy in a society that values accountability and transparency. The timing of these revelations is also significant. The monarchy has faced unprecedented challenges in recent years, from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's departure to the controversies surrounding Prince Andrew himself. These events have forced the institution to confront its vulnerabilities and adapt to a rapidly changing cultural landscape. In this context, the stories shared by Andrew's former maid feel particularly relevant. They are not just accounts of individual behavior, but also reflections of an institution grappling with its place in the modern world. For Andrew, these revelations have compounded the difficulties he already faces. His associations with figures like Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had already cast a long shadow over his public image, leading to his withdrawal from royal duties and the loss of his military titles. The maid's account adds another layer to this narrative, reinforcing perceptions of a man out of touch with the expectations of the time. While these stories may seem less significant than the larger scandals surrounding him, they contribute to a cumulative effect that has left his reputation deeply tarnished. The question now is what this means for the monarchy as a whole. Can the institution survive the scrutiny that comes with stories like these? And if so, what changes might be necessary to ensure its relevance in the future? The answers are far from clear, but what is certain is that the days of unquestioned reverence for the royals are fading. The public, armed with more information than ever before, is no longer content to accept the monarchy at face value. They demand accountability, not just from individual royals like Andrew, but from the institution itself. These demands have already begun to shape the narrative surrounding the royal family. Where once the focus might have been solely on their charitable work and ceremonial duties, there is now a growing interest in the human stories behind the palace walls. The former maid's decision to speak out is a testament to this shift. Her story, while deeply personal, resonates with a broader audience because it challenges the mystique of royalty and invites us to see them as individuals, flawed, complex, and ultimately human. As these stories continue to emerge, they raise important questions about the future of the monarchy. What does it mean to serve the crown in the modern era? How can the institution balance tradition with the need for change? And perhaps most importantly, how will it address the power dynamics that have allowed behaviors like Andrew's to persist? These are not easy questions, but they are ones that the monarchy will need to grapple with if it hopes to remain relevant in a world that increasingly values transparency and equality. For now, the story of Prince Andrew's former maid is a powerful reminder of the human cost of royal privilege. It highlights the challenges faced by those who serve the monarchy and the often overlooked realities of life behind the palace gates. But it also offers a glimpse into a changing world, one where even the most storied institutions are not immune to the demands of a more accountable and transparent society. As the revelations about Prince Andrew continue to unfold, they shine a spotlight not just on his individual actions but on the broader implications for the monarchy. The stories shared by his former maid and others who have worked closely with the royal family form a compelling narrative of entitlement, privilege, and an institution increasingly out of step with modern expectations. Yet these revelations also open the door to a deeper conversation about how the monarchy's structure and traditions contribute to these dynamics. For decades, the royal family has operated within an environment where deference to hierarchy is not just expected but ingrained. This culture has insulated many of its members from the consequences of their actions, allowing certain behaviors to go unchecked. In Andrew's case, this insulation has been particularly apparent. His status as the Queen's favorite child and his position as a senior royal have afforded him a level of privilege that few can fathom. But as these stories emerge, it becomes increasingly clear that this privilege has also been his undoing. The tales of Andrew's rude behavior towards staff and his peculiar demands, while seemingly trivial on the surface, speak to a deeper issue. They reveal a man who has grown accustomed to having his way, often at the expense of those around him. For the maid who had to endure his ire over a gap in the curtains or spend hours arranging his stuffed toys according to laminated instructions, these demands were not just inconveniences. They were emblematic of a larger imbalance of power. And for the public, these anecdotes serve as a reminder of the stark divide between the royals and those who serve them. This divide is not a new phenomenon. The monarchy has long relied on a strict hierarchy to maintain its authority, with staff expected to fulfill their roles with unwavering loyalty and discretion. But in recent years, this model has come under scrutiny, particularly as more individuals like Andrew's former maid have chosen to speak out. Their stories highlight the human cost of sustaining an institution that is often perceived as untouchable. They also challenge the narrative of perfection that the monarchy has worked so hard to cultivate. Public reaction to these revelations has been mixed. While many see them as confirmation of Andrew's entitlement, others view them as part of a larger critique of the royal family. For those who have grown disillusioned with the monarchy, these stories add fuel to the argument that the institution is outdated and out of touch. For its defenders, they are a reminder of the challenges that come with living a life under constant scrutiny. Regardless of where one stands, it is clear that the days of unquestioned reverence for the royals are fading. This shift in public perception has significant implications for the monarchy. As more stories like these come to light, the institution faces increasing pressure to adapt. This adaptation is not just about addressing individual scandals, but about rethinking its approach to power, privilege, and accountability. For a family that has long operated in the shadows of tradition, this is no small task. Yet it is one that is essential if the monarchy hopes to maintain its relevance in the years to come. One of the most striking aspects of these revelations is how they intersect with broader cultural conversations about privilege and power. In an era where transparency and accountability are highly valued, the monarchy's insular nature stands in stark contrast. The stories of Andrew's former maid and others who have spoken out offer a rare glimpse into this closed world, exposing its flaws and challenges in a way that few other accounts have. They also serve as a call to action, urging the institution to reflect on its practices and make meaningful changes. For Andrew, these revelations have further complicated an already precarious situation. His association with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had already cast a long shadow over his reputation, leading to his withdrawal from public duties and the loss of his military titles. The stories shared by his former maid, while less explosive than those scandals, add to the cumulative effect of public disapproval. They paint a picture of a man who has struggled to reconcile his royal status with the expectations of a modern world. This struggle is not unique to Andrew. It is part of a larger narrative that has played out across the royal family in recent years. From Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's decision to step back from royal duties to the controversies surrounding Prince Charles and his charitable foundations, the monarchy has faced a series of challenges that have tested its resilience. In each case, the institution has been forced to confront its vulnerabilities and adapt to a rapidly changing cultural landscape. These challenges have not gone unnoticed by the public. Polls show a growing divide in support for the monarchy, with younger generations increasingly questioning its relevance. For many, the stories of entitlement and privilege that have emerged in recent years only reinforce their doubts. They raise important questions about the role of the monarchy in a democratic society, and whether its existence can be justified in an age of equality and accountability. Yet, even as these questions grow louder, the monarchy remains a deeply ingrained part of British culture. Its traditions and ceremonies are woven into the fabric of the nation, providing a sense of continuity and stability in an uncertain world. For its supporters, this is reason enough to preserve it, despite its flaws. For its critics, however, these same traditions are evidence of an institution that is unwilling or unable to change. The tension between these two perspectives is at the heart of the debate surrounding the monarchy's future. On one side are those who see it as a vital part of Britain's identity, a symbol of unity and tradition. On the other are those who view it as a relic of the past, an institution that has failed to adapt to the values of a modern society. The stories of Andrew's former maid and others who have shared their experiences add depth to this debate, providing a human perspective on an issue that is often framed in abstract terms. For Andrew, the road ahead is uncertain. His withdrawal from public life has done little to quell the criticism he faces, and the stories shared by his former maid have only added to the challenges he must navigate. Yet, his personal struggles are just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The monarchy, as an institution, must now grapple with the implications of these revelations and find a way to move forward. As the narrative continues to unfold, it becomes increasingly clear that this is not just a story about one man. It is a story about an institution at a crossroads, a monarchy that must decide whether to cling to its traditions or embrace the changes demanded by a more egalitarian world. For Andrew's former maid, her decision to speak out was an act of courage, a chance to share her truth and challenge the norms that have long defined royal life. For the rest of us, it is a reminder that even the most powerful institutions are not immune to the forces of change. The revelations surrounding Prince Andrew have sparked an important conversation about privilege, power, and the human stories hidden behind the grandeur of royal life. As the monarchy faces a growing wave of scrutiny, these personal accounts, once kept quiet behind palace walls, serve as powerful reminders of the challenges that come with maintaining an institution as traditional and hierarchical as the British monarchy. Yet, as the dust settles on this latest chapter, it's worth considering what the future holds, both for Prince Andrew and for the monarchy as a whole. For Andrew, the path forward is fraught with difficulties. Public opinion has long turned against him, fueled not only by his connections to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, but also by the cumulative effect of stories that paint him as entitled and out of touch. His absence from public duties, while perhaps necessary, has done little to repair his image. Instead, it has left him in a kind of limbo, neither fully removed from royal life nor actively contributing to it. This in-between status is emblematic of a larger challenge facing the monarchy: how to handle its members who no longer align with its values or public expectations. Andrew's situation is particularly complex because of his deep familial ties and his long-standing role as a senior royal. Unlike Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who voluntarily stepped back, Andrew's retreat has been imposed upon him, creating a tension that is unlikely to dissipate anytime soon. The implications of this tension go beyond Andrew himself. They speak to a broader reckoning within the monarchy, as it seeks to balance tradition with the demands of a modern world. For centuries, the royals have been seen as symbols of stability and continuity. their every action steeped in tradition and formality. But as society evolves, so too must the monarchy if it hopes to remain relevant. Stories like those shared by Andrew's former maid highlight the urgent need for this evolution, exposing the cracks in an institution that has long been shielded from accountability. What makes these revelations particularly significant is their timing. The monarchy is already navigating a period of transition, marked by the passing of Queen Elizabeth II and the rise of King Charles III. This generational shift has brought with it a host of challenges, from questions about the relevance of the monarchy in a democratic society to debates over its financial transparency. Within this context, the stories surrounding Andrew feel less like isolated incidents and more like symptoms of a larger problem. The public, too, has a role to play in this reckoning. While the monarchy has historically relied on its mystique and tradition to maintain support, today's audiences demand more. They want transparency, accountability, and a sense that the institution they fund is earning its keep. This shift in expectations has placed unprecedented pressure on the royals, forcing them to confront issues that might once have been swept under the rug. For Andrew, this means that the standards by which he is judged are no longer limited to his royal duties or personal conduct. They also encompass the values and principles that the monarchy itself claims to uphold. The stories shared by his former maid, whether about his temper, his peculiar habits, or his treatment of staff, are not just anecdotes about a single individual. They are reflections of an institution that has allowed such behaviors to persist, unchecked and unchallenged. This dynamic has significant implications for the monarchy's future. If it hopes to survive and thrive in a more egalitarian world, it must not only address the actions of individuals like Andrew, but also confront the structural issues that have enabled them. This could mean rethinking the way the royals interact with their staff, ensuring that those who serve the monarchy are treated with the dignity and respect they deserve. It could also involve greater transparency about the inner workings of royal life, offering the public a clearer understanding of the institution's role and relevance. Of course, such changes will not come easily. The monarchy's strength lies in its ability to adapt while maintaining the appearance of continuity. But this balancing act has become increasingly difficult in a world where traditions are often seen as barriers to progress. For Andrew and others like him, the challenge is even greater: how to reconcile their personal histories with a public that demands more than ever before. Yet, amidst these challenges, there are also opportunities. The monarchy's willingness to confront these issues head-on could signal a new era of accountability, one that embraces transparency without losing sight of tradition. For Andrew, this might mean finding a way to contribute to the royal family in a manner that aligns with these evolving values. Whether through charity work, public apologies, or other means, his path to redemption, if it exists, will likely require a profound shift in both his actions and his public image. For the monarchy as a whole, the stakes are even higher. As it navigates this period of transition, it must decide what kind of institution it wants to be. Will it cling to the past, relying on the mystique of royalty to maintain its status? Or will it embrace the demands of a modern world, becoming a symbol of accountability and progress? The answers to these questions will not only shape the monarchy's future, but also its place in the hearts and minds of the public. The stories shared by Andrew's former maid are a small but significant part of this larger narrative. They remind us that even the most powerful institutions are made up of individuals, each with their own flaws and complexities. They also challenge us to think critically about the systems that allow such behaviors to persist, urging us to consider what we expect from those who hold positions of privilege and power. As this chapter of royal history continues to unfold, one thing is clear: the days of unquestioned reverence for the monarchy are over. In their place is a new era, one defined by transparency, accountability, and a willingness to confront the past. For Andrew, this means reckoning with the stories that have shaped his public image. For the monarchy, it means embracing the changes needed to ensure its survival in a rapidly changing world. The journey ahead will not be easy, but it is one that holds the potential for growth, transformation, and perhaps even redemption. Whether the monarchy can rise to the challenge remains to be seen. But as the public continues to demand more from its institutions, one thing is certain: the future of the monarchy will be shaped not by tradition alone, but by its ability to adapt to the values of a modern society. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.